Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So, have you ever installed a module and when you're looking into the repair information and you're trying to see if it needs programming, but it doesn't give you clear information that the programming is necessary? Even if you look at other repair information to cross-reference, it's very vague. So this happened to my client, and what I wanted to do is show you guys, instead of guessing, I'm going to show you my logical step-by-step process on how I was able to obtain the correct information so we can do the programming of the module. Okay, so in this case study, I'm going to show you how to program an ignition switch on a 2009 Volvo S80. If you are new to the channel, welcome. My name is Curtis Harden. I'm an independent auto diagnostic consultant, and what I do is I help shops and tech owners choose the right auto diagnostic tool, and I support those who don't have a tool but they need my help, and vice versa. Okay, so if you're ready to buy your auto tool, go to autotech.co.za and book the diagnostic tool consultation. Now, what you're going to learn by the end of this presentation is the following. You're going to discover the tools used in this case study. We're going to be learning important terms and definition related to this operation. We're going to see how to make the right programming decision when the aftermarket repair information is unclear or conflicting. And then we're going to identify the exact location and function of the SCU inside the vehicle. Okay, and then lastly, you're going to see the step-by-step process that I did to get this Volvo program. Okay, so the tools that we used in this case study was the Maxi Flash J2534. You can pretty much use any one. This is what he had at the time. Your Windows 10 laptop and your ignition switch control unit. Okay, so to give you a bit of background of this case study, the client is an European auto repair expert, and he replaced the ignition lock on the 2009 Volvo after the vehicle would not start. And even after the new part was installed, the car still showed immobilizer errors and it would not crank. So he then realized that the module might need to be programmed, but he didn't know the correct approach on how to do it. So he booked a consultation with me to assist him with the correct approach in order to get the vehicle started. Okay, so here's some key definitions. First is the SCU, the Start Control Module. Okay, so it's the component that handles the ignition authorization and the steering lock functions on the Volvo vehicles. Now, Volvo use different terminology depending on, I guess, what repair information source that you're using. Okay, I've seen ignition switch, start control module. There's a couple other ones, so you just need to take note of that. Next we have VIDA. So VIDA stands for Volvo Information and Diagnostic After Sales. Okay, so this software is $73 for 3 days access, and it gives you diagnostics, wiring diagrams, service procedures, and parts information. Okay, however, it does not include the actual programming software calibration. That needs to be purchased separately. Okay, so the $73 is to access the software, and then you still need to purchase the flash calibration file later on. Okay, so next we have VIDA upgrade. So when you see this term upgrade next to a calibration file, it means it installs a newer software version for a module already in the vehicle. Alright, so when Volvo has like a TSB and they need to update something, that's when you would select the upgrade option. Okay, the other term that you're going to see is VIDA reload. So this installs the correct software version defined for the vehicle's VIN. Alright, so it's used after you replace a module. If something got corrupted or lost its coding, this is the option that you would pick. Okay, now the location of the SCU is located inside the steering column area, right next to the ignition and steering lock assembly. So when you start and we insert or detect the key, the SCU sends its authorization to the SCM, and the SCM then checks the key's validity, it checks the brakes or the clutch switch, and it verifies the ECU's programming state. So, if the ECU isn't programmed or synced, the SCM blocks the crank request, and that's why, after replacing the ignition switch, the car is not going to start until you program the ECU. Okay. So what I always tell you guys is to look at the repair information, and this is ALLDATA, and they had absolutely nothing. All right. So I always look at the replace and repair, and it didn't give me anything. And I cross-referenced Identifix, and they were giving it different terminology, and there was also very vague. It wasn't clear as to what to do. So what I decided to do was, there's a slight risk involved in just jumping into the programming without direction. Number one, sometimes these aftermarket J2534s don't really work well with certain vehicles, and I had some instances where we couldn't get it to connect. All right, so I didn't want to just bite the bullet and tell the client to go pay for the subscription just yet. So I told him I said, look, I couldn't find any hardcore proof that that module needs to be programmed. I said, I'm thinking it just might need to be synchronized with the key. So what I did was I made this guide on how to pretty much do an all keys lost. You can do it on the bench or through OBD. OBD, it takes a long time, but it's easier to do. And he tried that, and that's when he sent me this message. I performed the OBD readings since I had time, and it recognized both keys, then stopped. I will book a session with you to take a look. The file I'm getting says a switch needs to be programmed. The all keys lost isn't giving me that option. Okay, so we went ahead. We purchased the first 3A access to Vita, and this is what I did. I'm trying to find out, what module this is, and you can see here we obtained the VIN number, and at this moment he had the brand new module in the vehicle, and then we got a prompt that said the ignition wasn't on, so we couldn't turn it on with this new module. So at this point I told him to put back on the original because it was still communicating, and then we're going to go ahead and proceed. Okay, so that's what we did, and we're going to go ahead and let this go through. I'm just going to fast forward it a little bit, you guys. Alright, so now that it got the VIN number, okay, you can see here we have a list of tabs here. There's operation, parts, software, diagnostics, networks, fault tracing. Okay, and if I can recall what I wanted to do, I know this gives you a topology view. Okay, I was trying to see if they had anything ignition related, and they didn't. They didn't. It wasn't clear. So on this tab, what I did was, to get to this tab, I went to software. I think it's software installation. Okay, and let's see, upgrades. This is like list available newer software versions for the module already installed in the car. Okay, the work list, okay, that one is it shows all the software operations currently queued or ordered for that VIN number. Okay, and then function changes. This is used when you add or remove vehicle features. Okay, and then we have the hardware changes. So this is used when a physical module or component has been replaced. Okay, so what I did now was I was trying to look in the search and see if anything ignition related would come up, and I couldn't find anything. So what I did was I selected all, and I'm still looking for the ignition switch terminology. Okay, and then as you can see, some of these you can see that they say reload, some say upgrade, and what I noticed now looking at this replay, the SCU module is right here. Okay, And at the time, I was just thinking ignition switch, all right, and I wasn't sure, and I needed to be 100% sure, because when you purchase a subscription or a programming file, if you get the wrong one, you have to pay another one, So I have to be sure, all right. So what I did now was I remembered on the other menus they had, I think it was parts. I think I went to parts. Let me fast forward it. Yeah, here we go, parts. Okay, so when you go to parts, it gives you like the part number, and I wanted to see what they were calling this thing. All right, and they called it an ignition switch. All right, so I was like, man, I gotta figure it out. Like I don't see these terms anywhere. All right. So my next step was number 2, find the correct SCU procedure. Okay. So when we purchased this, remember they give you access to repair information. So I went to this thing. I know it's blurry, but it's called operations. And what operations is, it's a tab that lists all the available service and software procedures for that selected vehicle. Okay, and you can see here, I click start operation, and this top one says start switch steering lock SCU replacement. All right, so I was kind of confused, but I said I know what the SCU is, and you can see here this is referring to the ignition lock. All right, so when you look at these instructions, all at the bottom, it's going to tell you what needs to be done. So it says order and download the software according, and that's the calibration number that we need. Okay, so I take note of that number, and my next step is to purchase the calibration file. Okay, and that's what I did. I informed the technician, and I told him that we need to purchase it. Now, keep in mind, you need to document this order number, because you're going to need it when you're about to download the calibration file. Okay, so from here, I'm going to go back to, I think it's software installation. Okay, and I can see my file there. Okay, like it's already there for me. So we're going to go ahead and click, this says retrieve. Okay, when I click retrieve, I'm going to get a pop-up where I'm going to put that order reference number. Okay, so that's what I'm going to go get right now. I'm going to pop it in there as so, you can see. Alright, I'm going to click OK, and then that's going to initiate the process. You can see the programming at about 33%. Alright, and then I'm going to go ahead and fast forward this a little bit. 17%, and we had a couple prompts that come up. Alright, this is just talking about the battery. Alright, and you can see, alright, programming the ignition switch, please wait. Alright, and look, I'm going to tell you guys a little backstory why this thing is doing. When I first started programming, the very first programming job that I did was for Volvo. And I kid you not, it took me 8 hours to install the software. Okay, and this was many years ago, but Volvo is probably the worst interface to start off with. All right, so if you have a lot of time and you don't mind spending hours and probably wasting money because you can't figure things out, I don't recommend doing this if you have a client going down your throat. Okay, so you can see here we programmed the module and everything was good. My client was happy, his customer was really happy, and that's what we did. Okay, so things to remember. Never assume a module needs programming just because the customer says so. Always validate it yourself via repair information before committing to the programming. And that's what I do. I always treat things as if I'm going to court. I need to show the judge why I'm doing what I'm doing. Okay. Next, Volvo reuses names for the same part. SU, steering lock, start switch, ignition module. So keep note of these terms for that VIN number to avoid chasing the wrong module or software. Okay. Next is Volvo requires 2 separate fees to access Vita. Okay. So remember, there's one just to use the software, and you'll get your repair information, your diagnostics, parts information, and then to purchase the calibration file. All right, that's going to be separate, so you always need to keep that in mind. And if the aftermarket info doesn't confirm programming, okay, attempt the module configuration with our tool first, and if that fails again, go to obtain the OEM repair information for certainty. Okay, and that's the best way. I wanted to exhaust all of our avenues before I would make that jump to yes, it needs programming. Okay, and then lastly, so Vita installs are really complex, so if it's your first Volvo programming job, rather let a professional handle it unless you have a lot of time on your hands. Okay, and that's where I can come in. So if you want to expand your European programming, you can go to allteltech.co.za, and I'll be more than glad to help you learn these type of skill sets. And if you're in the market for your tool, you also know where to go. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed it, guys. With that, I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye bye.